For me, it was over a simple dinner with my daughter at a quiet little restaurant in Charleston, South Carolina. The scent of grilled salmon and rosemary bread filled the air, the low hum of jazz playing in the background. I remember thinking it was one of those rare, peaceful evenings until my phone buzzed. The message was short, almost cryptic. "Turn on the camera. It's about to happen." My hands trembled slightly as I slid my phone under the table, my pulse quickening. I glanced at my daughter, laughing over a story about work, completely unaware. Every instinct in me screamed that whatever I was about to witness would change everything I thought I knew. I didn't know it yet, but that single text would open the door to betrayal so deep it would shake the very foundation of my family. And by the end of it all, justice, sweet, calculated justice, would be mine. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to hear will make you question the people you trust most. And before we dive in, please subscribe to this channel because you won't want to miss what comes next. My name is Daniel Foster, and until that dinner at the Indigo table in Charleston, I thought I understood the line between love and humiliation. I restore old porches for a living, handrails and balusters, steps that remember 100 pairs of feet. I'm 51, gray at the temples, divorced 6 years, and I measure time by projects and by my daughter, Olivia. She's 24, finishing a marketing internship in Atlanta, and the light that cuts through my worst days. When she texted that she wanted just us for dinner, I pictured catching up about work, maybe planning a fall fishing trip on Seabrook Island. I didn't picture a knife wrapped in linen. The restaurant hummed with low jazz and silverware. Olivia swept in wearing a navy dress and a careful smile. We hugged. She smelled like citrus and peppermint, the gum she chews when she's nervous. We traded small talk, her commute, my truck's temper, the way August makes Charleston feel like it's sweating through a suit. Halfway through the bread basket, my phone buzzed against my leg. A new number, Atlanta area code, delivered 7 words that tightened the whole night. "Turn on the camera. It's about to happen." I didn't recognize the number. Michael, my son up in Greenville, pulls pranks, but he doesn't do cryptic. Still, divorce teaches you a specific tension, a hair's breadth between relief and alarm that never unfurls. I slid the phone against my water glass and tapped record, angling the lens through condensation toward the center of the table. "Dad?" Olivia asked, noticing my drift. "You here?" "I'm here," I said, and tried to mean it. She hesitated. "I invited someone. I should have given you a heads up." Before I could ask who, the door opened and my ex-wife Rebecca swept in on a draft of damp air, wearing a cream blazer that said "I'm in charge." A tall man followed, 30-ish, expensive watch, smile that showed every tooth. Rebecca's perfume reached us first, clean and too cool for summer. "Dad," Olivia said quickly, "this is Ethan, my fiancé." I stood because decency is muscle memory. Ethan's handshake was dry, practiced. Rebecca kissed the air beside my cheek like it owed her something. "We wanted to tell you together," she said. "Family news should be shared properly." We sat. The waiter poured wine I hadn't ordered. Ethan leaned back and surveyed the room like a landlord. "Love the rustic vibe," he said, and made rustic sound like a flaw. Olivia's napkin trembled in her lap. "There's more," she said. "We're planning the wedding for October. Virginia wine country. It'll be small and elegant." She glanced at Rebecca, then at Ethan, who nodded as if granting permission. "We were hoping you could help with the venue deposit. It's due Friday." "How much?" I asked, though dread had already chosen a number. $32,000, Rebecca said smoothly, sliding a folder across the table. The tabs were color-coded. Everything's itemized. Very reasonable. Reasonable. I restore railings for a living. 32,000 felt like asking me to lift a house with my hands. I opened the folder anyway. Vendor lists. Contracts. A vineyard in soft light. Liv, I said gently, I don't have that kind of money. The silence flexed. Ethan filled it with a salesman's smile. It's not just about money. It's about showing up. I kept my voice even. I've always shown up for my daughter. Rebecca folded her hands. Let's not rewrite history. There were semesters of college you wouldn't co-sign. Times you refused to adapt out of pride. She looked at Olivia. Tell him. Olivia swallowed. Dad, I know you paid a lot. But it was hard. It felt like you didn't believe in me. I didn't believe in debt, I said. I took a line on my truck to cover what I could because I didn't want you chained to interest for a decade. I searched her face for the child who used to sit on porch steps, counting hammer swings. You know that. Her eyes slid toward the window where our reflections hovered over King Street. It's about support. About being present. Rebecca seized the word like a legal exhibit. Exactly. Presence. Which brings us to Ethan's family. They're discerning. Optics matter. The rehearsal dinner is intimate, our guest list tight. We think purely to avoid drama it's best if you don't attend. The ceremony either. I knew the cut was coming, the text had warned me. Still it landed like a brick dropped from a height. You're disinviting me from my daughter's wedding? I asked, keeping my tone low so the decision would have to sit in a civilized room and hear itself. Ethan smoothed his napkin. Traditions evolve. The whole father walking the bride thing? Kinda outdated. Olivia's voice dwindled. Dad, please don't be mad. There are politics with his parents. They have expectations. Mom thinks her sentence broke on a jagged edge. In the silence, I heard 12 years of custody schedules, holidays divided by court order, the arithmetic of loss. It's not about anger, I said. It's about respect. Rebecca's smile never touched her eyes. Respect goes both ways, Daniel. If you can't add financially, at least avoid subtracting from the experience. The waiter arrived with salads as if on cue. Plates set down. A candle flickered between us, drinking oxygen in a small, steady hunger. My phone lens stared through the veil of condensation, patient as a witness. I told myself to breathe. The Seabrook house stays out of this, I said, anticipating the next tab. It isn't collateral. It's Olivia's inheritance. Rebecca laughed, airy and mean. That moldy bungalow? Please. It's where Olivia learned to throw a cast net, I said, surprised at the steadiness in my voice. What we call shabby, our memories call sacred. Ethan lifted his water. No one's attacking your memories. We just want a beautiful weekend. By erasing me from it, I said. By avoiding drama, he corrected, smiling into his glass. The server returned with entrees, one for me I hadn't ordered. He set it down with careful hands. Beneath the lip of the plate, my fingers found a small folded card glued to the china. When the talk drifted to flowers and seating charts, I slid the card free. 3 block words, keep recording. Trust. Trust whom? The chef? A neighbor? Michael has friends everywhere. He'd know how to get a message to me without lighting Rebecca's alarms. The letter steadied me. If someone else expected a scene, then a scene would come, and I would not be the one to cause it. We performed politeness until the check arrived, $76 and change, Dignity priced like a modest indulgence. I paid. Outside, the heat relented to a damp breeze, streetlights laying gold across the cobblestones. Rebecca kissed Olivia's cheek and clicked away, heels counting the distance. Ethan shook my hand with the detachment of a man closing a minor deal. No hard feelings, he said, meaning the opposite. Olivia lingered. For a heartbeat the years peeled back and she was 5 again, tugging my sleeve to show me a fiddler crab she'd named Captain. "Dad," she whispered, "please don't make this worse." "I won't," I said. "But I won't disappear." Her eyes glistened with something like relief and something like fear. She nodded once, then turned toward Ethan's car. Red taillights washed over her as she walked away. I stood on the sidewalk with the phone warm in my pocket, camera still running. I didn't know who had warned me. I didn't know how many hands were on the knife. I only knew the shape of the cut and the echo it left behind. They wanted me quiet, absent, erased. The men on King Street laughed outside a bar. Somewhere a saxophonist found a soft, forgiving note. I promised myself I would outlast the song. Back home, my work shed smelled like cedar and machine oil. I set the phone on the bench and watched the footage. The camera had caught everything: Rebecca's folder, Ethan's smirk, Olivia's eyes drifting to the window. The audio was clean. The moment of disinvitation sounded colder on playback, words rendered surgical by the microphone's indifference. I saved the file to 2 hard drives. I emailed a copy to myself and to a fresh address I'd created for emergencies. I wanted to call Olivia to say the things fathers say when the world offers their children a bargain that costs their soul. You're worth more than approval. You are not a prop in anyone's optics. But I didn't call. Not yet. People caught in a strong current won't hear you until the water goes still. Near midnight, the same Atlanta number texted again. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. Magnolia House. Wear gray. Sit back left. Don't speak. Magnolia House is a historic venue on Queen Street that Rebecca name drops when she says taste. A larger play was underway, staged in rooms where perception mattered more than truth. If they wanted me gone, I would stand where they could not ignore me, quiet as a camera, exact as a ledger, and this time ready. The next evening Charleston felt like it was holding its breath. I wore the gray shirt the anonymous text demanded, parked 2 blocks away, and walked into Magnolia House rehearsing the hardest line of my life: silence. I signed in as vendor review guest, a costume that only fit if I kept my mouth shut. Back left. Sit. Don't speak. I took a seat beside a ficus with a view of the room. 10 years earlier I had restored the stair rail here while Rebecca argued with the manager about the exact warmth of eggshell paint. Perfection used to be our shared religion. She learned to preach. I learned to leave. Rebecca arrived first, black dress, pearl at her throat, eyes like polished steel. My sister, Teresa, slipped in right after, jaw tight, teacher calm. "Danny, what is this?" she whispered. "Observation day," I said. Ethan entered with his parents, the Harpers. Posture, pearls, and practiced smiles. Olivia came last in a soft blue dress, hair pinned that told me compromise had cost her sleep. Her eyes found me. Surprise flickered, then composure. She mouthed, "Why are you here?" I tilted my head toward the projector and stayed still. A coordinator gathered everyone near a mantle of votives. "Welcome to the Magnolia tasting," she chirped. "Tonight we finalize food, flow, and ceremony layout." Ethan hooked an arm through Olivia's with proprietary ease. Rebecca drew the Harpers close like a general pulling lieutenants around a map. We sampled soup while Mrs. Harper auditioned opinions. We expect excellence, she said. Presentation matters. We can't have rustic missteps. Her glance grazed my gray shirt and returned to the spoon. Ethan nodded. We're modernizing. Moving past old traditions. Teresa bristled. Respect isn't an old tradition, she said. It's the only one. In the ballroom, mirrors multiplied everything. Rows of chairs formed a semicircle around an aisle like a throat. Rebecca hovered over a seating diagram. Parents of the bride, she said, penciling in the Harpers. Front row. Honored guests behind. Her pen paused over a blank square where my name should have sat and slid past it, casual as a cut. Teresa leaned toward me. Say something. My stomach was rope. The text had said trust. Not yet, I whispered. Across the room, Ethan drew Olivia toward the aisle. Let's rehearse your walk, he said. My father can escort you. It's cleaner. Olivia's shoulders tightened. Cleaner? Ethan smiled. Simpler optics. Everyone understands. Rebecca snapped, Daniel, this is not your scene, when I stepped forward half a pace. Olivia looked at the runner patterned with magnolias, then at me, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Courage in her private language. I want peace, she said. Peace that cost your father is a tax, not peace, Teresa murmured. A server in a white jacket glided past and, in a practiced slip, left a tent card on the empty chair beside me. Teresa shielded the movement with her purse and handed me the card. 3 short lines in Michael's printing. Look at the projector. 30 seconds. Keep quiet. I kept waiting. The coordinator dimmed the sconces. Quick slideshow for inspiration, she said. The screen brightened. Past weddings flickered, sunlit vineyards, laughing couples, 100 easy smiles. Then the audio changed, sharpened, and I recognized the frame. Low-angle water glass, candle flame like a metronome. Rebecca's voice filled the room, crisp, unmistakable. We think purely to avoid drama, it's best if you don't attend. There we were at the indigo table, my hand on the folder, Ethan's smirk, Olivia's eyes. A rippling murmur passed through the room. The coordinator fumbled at the remote, but the clip continued clean as a confession. Ethan's voice followed, by avoiding drama. Then his stage exit line from the sidewalk, delivered with a salesman's handshake, no hard feelings. Mrs. Harper's hand went to her chest like she'd swallowed a seed. Mr. Harper's jaw set. Teresa breathed, mercy, not as a wish but as a verdict. Olivia pressed her fingers to her lips, eyes gleaming in the projector's light. Rebecca found anger first. Turn that off, she snapped. When the screen went black, the candles suddenly looked like witnesses. Rebecca rounded on me. How dare you weaponize a private conversation? My reply surprised me with its calm. I preserved it. You weaponized it. Ethan stepped forward. You think this stunt will change our standards? Teresa slid between us half a step. Your standards are why this room is choking. Michael appeared near the doorway in a server jacket, face composed, posture unafraid. He didn't look at me, but his presence was the spine in my back. Mr. Harper attempted diplomacy. Olivia, he said, our offer stands. We'll host at our vineyard. Discretion. Elegance. Security. The last word he aimed at me like a tranquilizer dart. Olivia turned in a slow circle, taking in the diagram, the aisle, the people who thought they were architects but were really demolition crews. Everyone here keeps using the word protection, she said. But I feel like a product. Ethan spread his hands. We're shielding you from chaos. Olivia looked at me. I stayed steady. Chaos, she said, is asking a daughter to delete her father so nobody else has to feel uncomfortable. Rebecca's voice thinned. We made a plan. Teresa answered, plans that require cruelty were written by fear. Silence gathered like weather. The pianist in the lobby slid into a minor key that felt like spine. Olivia stepped into the aisle and stood alone. Here's my plan, she said. I'm not cutting my father out. If that breaks somebody's optics, they can look away. She turned to me, voice small and brave at once. Dad, will you walk with me wherever we hold this? My throat tightened. I managed, any road live. Ethan hissed, don't be dramatic. Michael's voice rose from the wall, quiet and devastating. Drama is a $32,000 invoice attached to a threat. Mr. Harper stiffened. Watch your tone, son. Michael didn't blink. Watch your ethics. Mrs. Harper recovered her poise and aimed it like a blade. Our family does not tolerate scenes. Teresa smiled without humor. Then you'll hate truth. Rebecca's fury cooled into strategy. Daniel, she said, if you care for Olivia, you will step back and let adults coordinate adult matters. I met her eyes. Adults also apologize. I held the room's gaze. Ethan, you asked me to fund a party I'm not allowed to attend. Return the request. Apologize to my daughter for turning love into optics. Ethan scoffed. Or what? Michael answered, or the video sees more light than candles. Olivia reached for my hand and squeezed as if testing whether I was real. Come outside with me, she said. We stepped into the corridor where the air tasted like wood polish and nerves. A painting of magnolias watched us with impossible perfection. I thought excluding you would keep peace, she whispered. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Tears traced quiet lines. Please don't give up on me. I never did, I said. I got quiet. That ends now. Teresa joined us, shoulders easing. You okay, Liv? Olivia nodded, fragile and fierce. I am if we change the plan. From the ballroom came muffled voices, Rebecca's control, Ethan's temper, Mr. Harper's management tone running out of road. The piano shifted to a brighter chord as if the building itself had opinions. We walked back in together, three people who finally agreed on one fact. Family is not an audience you have to impress. It is a shelter you have to keep standing. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. My silence was no longer consent. It was a promise that the next word, when it came, would be the right one, in the right room at the right time. Back inside Magnolia House, three of us, Teresa, Olivia, and me, stood shoulder to shoulder like we just crawled out of a rip current onto wet sand. The room simmered with quiet calculations. Ethan smoothed his tie. Rebecca gathered the shreds of authority and pinned them back in place. We're done for tonight, she announced, voice crisp. We'll regroup tomorrow at brunch. The Harpers have graciously offered their carriage house on Trad Street. Mr. Harper seconded with a thin smile. Tomorrow at 11. We'll settle the remaining details calmly. Olivia squeezed my hand once more and let go. I'll be there, she said. She looked at me like she was asking a question and giving an answer at the same time. I nodded, even though I didn't know which part one was agreeing to. Outside, Charleston's air had cooled into something you could almost forgive. Michael leaned against a lamppost, server jacket folded over his arm. He didn't offer a hug. He offered intelligence. I didn't hack anything, he said, reading my look. A friend in Atlanta sent the video to a cloud I set up and gave the coordinator a link. The projector did the rest. Who's the friend in Atlanta? I asked. He shrugged, cagey. Someone who doesn't like bullies. Teresa slid a look at him. Danny, you need more than a moment. You need leverage. Ethan gravitates to people he can manage. That's most rooms, I said. She smiled with her teeth. Not ours. Back at my house, the cicadas were practicing for a symphony. I stood in the workshop, breathing cedar and machine oil, and scrolled my phone out of habit. Another text from the Atlanta number flashed at the top of the screen. No greeting, no pleasantries, just a link and a line. If he makes demands tomorrow, ask him about Harper Venture Group, Series B, and why his strategic partner is really a collections agency. I tapped the link. A PDF opened. Termination letterhead from a tech firm in Buckhead, dated 7 months earlier. Cause: financial impropriety, undisclosed conflicts of interest, prohibited side agreements. Another attachment: a civil settlement, non-admission of guilt, restitution terms redacted, a signature that looked rushed. My pulse thudded in the quiet. Ethan wasn't just smug. He was precarious. I forwarded both files to myself twice and printed hard copies on the old laser printer that smelled like warm dust. I slipped them into a manila folder and wrote on the tab, "Answers." I didn't plan to wave any of it like a flag. The point wasn't embarrassment. The point was to stop a slow-motion theft of my daughter's life. At midnight, the phone buzzed again. A Charleston number this time. My attorney, Alistair Gaines, didn't believe in bedtime for bad news. "Daniel," he said, voice steady as a porch beam, "your sister called. She says you could use some counsel." "Understatement," I said. "Walk me through it." I did. The dinner, the disinvitation, the projector, the brunch. He listened, the way a craftsman listens to wood feeling where the grain wants to split. "When's the last time you reviewed the Seabrook deed?" he asked when I was done. "A year after the divorce," I said. "I set up that transfer on death designation to Olivia. You remember the rider we added?" I'd forgotten there even was a rider. Custody years blur like rain behind a car window. "Paragraph 6, he said. "Upon engagement, a letter from your late mother is to be delivered to Olivia. She left it with me when she was ill, said she didn't want a medal, she wanted to bless. There's also a small trust, 50,000 for a wedding. Conditions are particular." My breath paused, hung between panic and hope. "What conditions?" "You and Olivia choose the venue together. No loans may be incurred in connection with the event. And this will sound old-fashioned, the father of the bride must escort the bride, unless deceased or incapacitated. If conditions aren't met, funds go to a scholarship at Charleston School of the Arts in Olivia's name." My mother. Soft hands, stern kindness. She had been the first to teach me that love wasn't always saying yes. Sometimes it was building a structure to hold the ones who couldn't hold themselves. I leaned against the workbench until the world reassembled. "Bring the letter to brunch," I said. "No," he said gently. "Bring me to brunch. I'll come as a friend until I need to be an attorney." I laughed, tired. "Alistair, you always look like an attorney." "Then I'll bring cookies," he said. So I look like a guest. Sleep showed up like a distant relative, late, awkward, bearing casseroles. I woke before sunrise with sawdust in my hair and a decision in my chest. The question of whether to stay silent or act wasn't really a question anymore. Silence had protected no one. Silence had simply been a space where other people rehearsed their speeches. At 10:30, We gathered at the Harper's carriage house on trad exposed brick, art that wanted to be noticed. Mrs. Harper poured iced tea as if it were a ceremony. Mr. Harper arranged papers in a folio. Ethan worked the room, hand on Olivia's back, chin lift for me that said, "You're still here?" A quick hug for Rebecca, performative. Teresa slipped in with a Tupperware of biscuits and an expression that promised they were both weapon and comfort. Alistair arrived last, carrying a bakery box and his calm like a suit. "Who's this?" Ethan asked, lightly suspicious. "A family friend," I said. "Brought sweets, not opinions." "That would be a first," Rebecca muttered. We sat at a long farm table that probably cost what my truck is worth. The Harpers talked timeline, guest counts, flower varietals. Olivia nodded at intervals, but her eyes tracked me and Teresa and then Alistair, as if she were triangulating safety. Eventually Mr. Harper cleared his throat. "One pragmatic item," he said. "Prenup. Standard, mutual protection. We'll have our counsel send a draft today. No pressure." The words floated like pleasant weather until they didn't. Ethan unrolled a thin smile. "And because optics matter, as we all agree, we're asking Olivia to list any assets she may receive in the near term, so we can ensure full transparency." "Assets like the Seabrook house?" Rebecca suggested casually, almost kindly, as if she were offering sugar. "It should be titled properly." Olivia straightened. "It's not yours to title," she said, voice careful. I set my palm flat on the table. My hand didn't shake. "Before we open folios and start drawing lines around my daughter's future, I have a letter that belongs to her." Alistair slid a cream envelope across the table. Olivia took it with both hands. Her name was on the front and my mother's looping script. Olivia stared at the name for a long second, like she might be able to feel my mother's pulse in the ink. "I didn't know about this," I said. "I hadn't thought about it in years. Your grandmother left it with Alistair when she was sick." Olivia slit the envelope carefully. "Papers," whispered. She read silently, lips forming words. After a moment she put a hand to her mouth and blinked quickly, once, twice. She read on. The room stilled. Rebecca twitched. Ethan tried to look at the letter from an angle, but the angle didn't like him. Olivia folded the letter with care. She looked at me first, then at everyone else. "My grandmother set aside wedding money," she said. "It's not a lot by your standards, maybe, but it's generous. 50,000. There are conditions." "What conditions?" Rebecca asked, throat tight. "Dad and I choose the venue together," Olivia said. "No loans. And my father walks me down the aisle." Ethan laughed, but it came out a fraction too loud. "That's quaint." "It's binding," Alistair said, finally letting his voice show its edges. "Trust instrument, signed, witnessed. If the conditions aren't met, the funds are donated to a scholarship in Olivia's name." Mrs. Harper's smile froze. "We're not opposed to sentiment," she said. "But there are practicalities. Our vineyard has already—" Olivia cut her, voice steady. "We haven't signed anything." Rebecca pinned me with a look that held a decade of courtroom posture. "So this was always the plan. Weaponizing money." I met her gaze. "I didn't know about the letter until last night. I didn't write the conditions. But I agree with them." Ethan leaned back, calculating. "Fine," he said. "We adapt. Daniel, you can escort. Optics, as your attorney friend says, can be adjusted." He turned to Mr. Harper. "We'll still host. It's the only venue that matches our standards." I slid the manila folder a few inches. Not a threat, a possibility. Before we finalize anything, I said, I need transparency too. I looked at Ethan. Do you want to tell us about Harper Venture Group, Series B? Or should I read from the exhibits? The one I wrote into myself, I said. No more silence. There, on Trad Street under the weight of old trees and the watch of old houses, I stopped choosing between peace and truth. I chose action. An action once chosen does not unchoose you. I drove straight from Trad Street to Seabrook, past the water where the marsh grass breathes in and out like a living lung. The gate at the end of the sandy lane groaned the way old things do when they're relieved to see you. I stepped out into the hush of late afternoon. The air tasted like salt and pine, and unlocked the workshop with the muscle memory of 100 repairs. Revenge is a bad carpenter. It measures once and cuts rage. Justice is patient, square, level, plumb. I spread papers on the old drafting table and called 3 people, Alistair, Teresa, and Olivia. Alistair arrived first with a briefcase and a bakery bag. He placed lemon bars beside affidavits. We'll start by making the one thing they want most the one thing they can't touch, he said, tapping the folder labeled deed. You mean the house? He nodded. We'll record a no encumbrance covenant today. We'll add a standing trespass notice that requires law enforcement to remove anyone who refuses to leave. And we'll finalize the transfer on death language to Olivia with an addendum. Her future spouse, if there is one, has no claim or marital interest. It's airtight. Teresa swept in with groceries and a toolbox she treats like a purse. I brought lights, extension cords, and potato salad, she said. I can fix a mood faster than a fuse. Olivia came last, face scrubbed clean of other people's plans. She hugged me for a long time, longer than I deserved and exactly as long as I needed, then turned to Alistair. What do I sign? 2 things, he said, laying out documents. First, we freeze your credit with all 3 bureaus. No one can open a loan in your name while you sleep. Second, we acknowledge the conditions of your grandmother's trust in writing and choose a venue. Olivia's pen didn't hesitate. Venue, Seabrook, she said, and wrote it as if she were engraving it into wood. The relief in the room changed the temperature. Teresa flipped open her toolbox. Permission to string lights? Permission granted, I said. We moved like a crew that had built porches together for years. Teresa looped lights through the live oaks and set mason jars along the path. Michael arrived in a pickup full of folding chairs and a grin he kept hiding behind a water bottle. Brought backup, he said, jerking his chin toward the road. An unmarked sedan eased in behind him. A tall woman stepped out, dark hair in a bun, badge discreet at her belt. Deputy Sarah Kent, she said, shaking my hand. Alistair gave me a heads up about your trespass notice and the heightened emotions. I'm not looking for a scene, I said. Good, she replied. Because if one shows up, I'll move it along. By dusk, the oaks were dressed in small constellations. Teresa's potato salad sat next to deviled eggs and store-bought cookies like nobody was keeping score. Neighbors wandered through the gate, carrying casseroles the way coastal people do when they smell a gathering. A pair of fiddler crabs scuttled sideways at the edge of the yard like tiny ushers late to their posts. We didn't send invitations. We sent a message. Olivia posted a single photo on her private account. Her hand on the Seabrook handrail, the caption, "We're doing this our way." Teresa texted a few friends. Word of mouth does what money can't. It moves like belief. The Harpers and Rebecca didn't RSVP. They arrived. At 7:30, A convoy of impeccable cars rolled beneath the oaks like a storm pretending to be progress. Ethan led the procession in a slate sedan that wanted to be a mirror. Mr. Harper stepped out already speaking. Mrs. Harper's pearls were a rosary she had no intention of praying. Rebecca's heels punctured the dirt like exclamation points. They stopped at the gate when they saw Deputy Kent. Alastair stood at her shoulder, all Southern courtesy with a titanium core. I walked to meet them, my hands visible, my heart steady. "Daniel," Mr. Harper said, polite as a summons. "We're here to avert a mistake." "We're here to celebrate a decision," I said. Ethan's eyes ticked past me toward the house, toward Olivia. "You can't freeze her credit," he said, skipping hello. "That's controlling." "It's protective," I said. "Like seat belts." Mrs. Harper aimed a smile at Deputy Kent. "Officer, we're family." "Deputy," she corrected gently. "And you're guests until you're not." Rebecca's voice slid into the space between us. "You are grandstanding on a porch you treat like a throne." I glanced up at the oaks. "It's not a throne. It's shelter." Teresa appeared at my elbow with a tray of lemon bars like a woman who has never once been intimidated by a pearl. "Refreshments?" she asked brightly. Mr. Harper breathed through his nose. "We will host the wedding at our vineyard. It's a standing, generous offer. Your setup is charming." "It is not appropriate." Olivia stepped onto the porch. The string lights found her and stayed. "It's appropriate for me," she said, voice clear. "And I'm the bride." Ethan's smile chilled. "We need to talk alone," he said. "No more closed rooms," Olivia replied. "Say what you came to say." He glanced at his parents, then Rebecca, and recalibrated. "Fine. I came to fix a misunderstanding and to address a few conditions." "Conditions?" Michael echoed, leaning against a post that had held more weight than Ethan ever would. "Now we're getting to the fun part." Ethan opened a slim folio. "1, he said, counting on manicured fingers. "This house is an asset with significant deferred maintenance. You can't afford the liability." 2, optics. "A Marsh wedding suggests, frankly, smallness." 3, we proceed with a prenup that recognizes proportional contributions. "My career trajectory is." Paused by termination for conflict of interest, Teresa offered cheerfully. "Don't forget that bullet point." Ethan's cheek twitched. 4, he pushed on. "We agree as a group on guest list and decor." "No, potluck." He made potluck sound like contagious disease. I let the silence breathe so his words could hear themselves. Then I slid a single page across the porch table between us. He didn't take it, so I read the first line aloud. "Notice of no trespass and revocable license for event access." Deputy Kent's voice was practical. "It means you're invited to attend as guests if the hosts agree and you behave. If you don't, I revoke your license to be here and you leave." "We are not criminals," Mr. Harper said flatly. "No," she said. "You're people. People sometimes need boundaries written down." Rebecca's gaze cut to Olivia and back to me. "So this is your revenge. Embarrass Ethan. Humiliate us. Win her with spectacle." I felt my hand settle on the rail Olivia had sanded just last summer. "Revenge is loud," I said. "Justice is a list." I ticked items on my fingers. 1, Olivia's credit is frozen. 2, Seabrook's deed is fortified. 3, the trust conditions stand. 4, we're not taking loans or performing for optics. 5, if Ethan wants to marry my daughter, he shows up here clean, honest, and without other people's money in his pocket. Mr. Harper's composure wavered. You're accusing our son. I'm requiring clarity, I said. I turned to Ethan. There's a collections agency in Atlanta that knows your name in ways you haven't shared. If I'm wrong, say so. If I'm right, stop selling my daughter a future underwritten by silence. Ethan's answer was a long breath through his nose. You've made this wedding impossible. Good, Olivia said softly. Then we won't have a wedding until it's right. Mrs. Harper blinked. You're postponing? I'm pausing, Olivia corrected. She walked down the steps, each footfall sure. I love you, she said to Ethan, and the oaks held the truth of it like leaves hold dew, but I won't step into a life that can only stand if my father disappears. If you want me, meet me where I am. Not at your vineyard, not in your story. Here. In mine. Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. He turned for a softer target. Rebecca. She flinched like she'd been called to the witness stand. For a second I saw the girl I married, the one who wanted perfect because she'd grown up in chaos. Then the second was gone. She lifted her chin. Olivia, she said, perception matters. Olivia shook her head gently. Respect matters more. Teresa, never one to waste a victory, clapped her hands once. Lemon bars? She asked the stunned Harpers. They're too sweet for your taste, but that's us unapologetically sweet. Laughter rippled through the yard, the kind that diffuses corners. A neighbor kid started a playlist low under the oak canopy. Deputy Kent relaxed 1 inch. I looked at Ethan. You can stay, I said. As Olivia's guest. No demands. No deals. Or you can leave and decide what you value. Either way, this porch won't carry your conditions. He stared at the lights, the jars, the something he couldn't buy. For a heartbeat I thought he might choose humility. Then the heartbeat passed. Let's go, he snapped. Mrs. Harper bristled. Ethan. Let's go, he repeated louder and strode to the car. The Harpers followed because momentum is its own morality. Rebecca lingered. She looked at Olivia, and for once she didn't look past me to see who might be judging her. I thought I was protecting you, she said, voice so soft the marsh wind almost kept it. I was protecting a version of myself. She swallowed hard. I'm sorry. Olivia's eyes flooded and steadied. Thank you, she said. They did not hug. Some bridges shouldn't be sprinted across. They should be measured and rebuilt. The cars left a long silence in their wake, the kind that feels like a room finally exhaling. Deputy Kent tipped her chin. You won't need me much longer, she said. Stay for a plate, Teresa offered. Every city needs a county auntie. Deputy Kent smiled and took a paper plate and became someone's cousin for an hour. The night took on the softness only a house can give when it's relieved of fear. Neighbors told stories under the oaks. Michael lit sparklers for the kids. Olivia sat on the top step of the porch, bare feet tucked under her, looking like every good decision I had almost been too scared to make. I sat beside her. We didn't talk for a while. We watched the river turn to ink and then to mirror and then to suggestion. Finally she said, I'm scared. Me too, I said. Honesty has a way of fitting right on the first try. What if he doesn't come back? She asked, voice threaded with grief. Then he wasn't walking toward you, I said. He was walking toward an audience. She nodded. And if he does? Then he'll be different, I said. Or he'll pretend. Either way, you'll recognize it. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I hate that you were right. I hate the road it took to prove it, I said. But I'm grateful for the destination. Teresa launched a paper lantern and hooped when it rose clean. Someone sang off-key and it sounded like Faith. Alistair collected empty plates the way good men gather small messes you don't notice until they've vanished. Near 10, tires crunched the lane again. The yard tensed lightly, then eased when a single car door shut. Ethan walked back under the lights without his parents, his tie gone, his certainty softer. He stopped at the gate. "May I come in?" he asked. Deputy Kent looked at me. I looked at Olivia. She nodded. He stepped onto the porch and faced her, not me. "I lied," he said. "Not about everything. Enough. I was fired. I made side deals I thought were clever. They weren't. I told myself optics mattered more than apologies. They don't." He looked at me. "I disrespected you because I thought respect was a ladder and I had a higher rung." I kept my face still. The apology wasn't mine to accept. Olivia's voice didn't tremble. "What do you want?" "To earn another chance," he said. "Not tonight. Not with conditions. With work." "Work starts with withdrawal," she said. "Pull the vineyard offer. Tell your parents to stand down. Apologize to my father and Teresa. Send Alistair the settlement documents. Then step back while I breathe. If you can do that for 30 days, we'll talk." He exhaled. "Okay. And Ethan," she added, "no more optics. If you can't love me in someone else's shadow, you won't love me in my own light." His shoulders sagged in a way that looked like honesty and exhaustion holding hands. He turned to me. "Mr. Foster," he said, "I was cruel to you. I made money a weapon. I'm sorry." I nodded once. Apology received. Trust is backordered. A laugh escaped him, surprised and cracked. "Fair." He left without asking for a timeline. The gate clicked shut behind him like a chapter that knows its last line. We didn't cheer. Justice doesn't need applause. It needs sleep. People drifted home. Teresa packed leftovers with the militant tenderness of a woman who refuses to waste grace. Deputy Kent hugged Olivia, shook my hand, and vanished into the sensible night. After midnight, the yard went quiet except for the tide and the kind of cricket that sings only when it knows you'll finally hear it. Olivia kissed my cheek. "Good night, Dad." "Good night, Liv." I walked the fence line once, checking latches I'd already checked. Old habits. New peace. On the porch, I looked up at the string lights and thought about the first text. Turn on the camera. It's about to happen. The camera had caught humiliation. Tonight had caught something else. Repair, visible as light, ordinary as food, unremarkable as a boundary honored without argument. I locked the door and stood in the quiet of a house that has learned to forgive. Justice isn't loud, I told myself again. It's steady. It's a hand on a railing someone you love will need tomorrow. I set my phone on the counter, backed up the new recordings with the old, and slid both into the drawer beside the lemon bars Teresa forgot to take home. In the morning, I would call the clerk to confirm the filings. Olivia would call Alistair and ask him to review a one-page prenup that said only what dignity needs. What's yours is yours, what's mine is mine, what we build together. Ethan would send an email that either proved he'd hurt us or proved he never would. Rebecca would call and ask if she could bring coffee, and I would say yes, with conditions that sounded like kindness because they were. For now the house listened. The river breathed. And I slept the way you do when you have chosen the right kind of fight and already laid down the right kind of weapon. Some nights leave you restless. Others tuck you in. That night under the Seabrook oaks, I learned that justice doesn't always roar, it can whisper, stand its ground, and still win. The porch didn't need speeches or victories measured in humiliation. It needed boundaries, honesty, and the courage to keep them no matter who walked away. Olivia's wedding may not happen exactly when or how she first imagined, but it will happen on her terms. The trust my mother left wasn't just money, it was a map out of manipulation. It reminded me that love is not measured by the size of the venue, the price of the flowers, or the guest list approved by strangers. Love is measured by who shows up for you without rewriting your story. Ethan may change or he may not. Rebecca may keep her distance, or she may rebuild her bridge one honest plank at a time. Those choices are theirs. My choice was simple: protect what matters, speak when it counts, and never again confuse silence with peace. Sometimes the people you love most are the ones who wound you deepest. But if you stand firm, justice will find its way home. And before you go, please subscribe to this channel.